The Indian government has set a goal of adding 500 gigawatts of renewable energy capacity to the country's energy sector by 2030. Prime Minister Narendra Modi has announced at COP26 that India will satisfy 50% of its energy needs from renewable sources by 2030. We will continue to reduce the economy's carbon intensity to less than 45%. India has added an average of 8 gigawatts of renewable energy every year since 2010, with the exception of 2020, when it added 12 gigawatts. As a result, adding around 40 gigawatts every year is a massive undertaking that must be meticulously managed exceptionally, since major contribution from hydropower projects are unlikely. On this note, EPR Magazine is organizing a power talk on renewable energy, the 500 gigawatt transition and business prospects. To discuss the present stance of India's RE sector, leading experts from the energy sector will talk with us about the challenges, opportunities, and suggestions to meet this set target efficiently. Ladies and gentlemen, it's an honor and privilege for me to introduce you our today's distinguished panelist. Mr. Amit Barve, Head Solar Business Unit of Panasonic Life Solutions India. Mr. Raghavendra Mirji, Senior Vice President and Business Head, Godrej Electronicals and Electronics India Private Limited. Mr. Amit Arokar, Founder and Managing Director, ECE India Energies Private Limited.
Mr. Barve, you gave a very optimistic outlook for the solar business in the coming years. And to be more specific, even the government is hopeful to have 280 gigawatts installed of solar installation of solar capacity by 2030. So how do you see this earmark being executed in the coming years to meet the target?
Thanks, Mira. Yeah, see the target what you're seeing of reaching up to 280 or 300 is absolutely challenging, no doubt about it. But till the time we do not put a challenge, it's even hard to achieve the figures. Maybe as what Mirji sir said earlier, that earlier when the target of 100 gigawatt was put or even the 80 gigawatt was put as a part of the national solar mission initially, people were not very skeptical, how are we going to do that? And when it got raised to 100 gigawatt, I think so it was further more skepticism was there, how we are going to do it. But today we stand at 50 gigawatt, which has been done. Yeah, it's not a, I would say, small achievement that has been done in few years when we really started this journey towards the renewable. So as you said, I'm really optimistic. I don't know whether it will be really 280 or 300, but whatever the figure we will do, it may be, I'm sure, not less than 200 gigawatt. That's at least I'm very much sure would be upside of that. Yeah, and that itself will be substantial achievement as far as looking towards mitigating the net zero goals, what we have looking forward for 2030 as well as 2050. Today, the industry is really gearing up. Yeah, as PLI schemes have come up, I think so. One area where we were lagging was onto the manufacturing capacity, and even in the manufacturing capacity, we can see we only had a manufacturing on solar module. There was hardly anything in cell. There is still today, there is nothing in wafer, nothing in ingot, no traces on polysilicon. But with the PLI coming up, I think so the entire ecosystem and value chain will expand, which is the need of the time. Because if we just do increasing in the module manufacturing capacity, it's not going to help, because our dependency on import material will still remain high. And till the time we do not master the entire value chain, it won't have been helpful for us. So it's a right steps taken in the right direction. PLIs have come. It will take its own time. It cannot be that the polysilicon unit will come up in next 1 year or 2 years. It may take 3 years or 4 years before the production gets established. But at least once we have this base level manufacturing established in India, I think so sky is the limit. And probably the expansions beyond 2030 can go even far more faster than probably what we have seen from today till 2030.
Absolutely, you mentioned it very correctly. In fact, one more question I have is that is presently we don't meet the domestic production and the demand for panels and cells. So, Mr. Amit Arokar, from you, I would like to understand that how is BCDs, basic custom duty that is, will impact the projected growth in the nearest years. Again, the surplus demand will increase the prices, right?
Yes, the prices will definitely increase by the BCD, but the expansion of the capacities by the manufacturer may lead to the completion of the whatever the demands of the market right now.
Right. Mr. Barve, would you like to add something?
Yeah. I would like to add something. So what I see is that short term there will be disruption, because today what we see is only 4 to 5 gigawatt of cell manufacturing capacity. Majority of the cell manufacturing is again on polysilicon, polycrystalline actually, not even on monocrystalline. Today, even getting the wafers of polycrystalline, which is becoming an absolute technology, is also another challenge. So we will see a couple of disruptions. One, availability of wafers to be imported in India on polycrystalline, the prices at which it will get imported, the parity between the polycrystalline and monocrystalline, which was one of the deciding factor why major projects were going on polycrystalline, will keep getting reduced because the prices of poly will keep going up. And the short-term disruptions will be there, because for us to expand that manufacturing capacity of the cell to reach to that level of the module manufacturing capacity will take not less than at least 1.5 years to 2 years, because even establishing a cell line itself takes 6 to 7 months in terms of installation, and then stabilizing the production, getting the production within efficiencies which are required will take further more time. So whatever announcements we have seen from the larger groups, the capacity coming online in terms of getting utilized for the module manufacturing will take some time. So in short term, I see a disruption, and disruption will lead to the price increase and some projects becoming unviable actually.
Absolutely. It looks like Mr. Raghavendra is willing to add something to it. Mr. Raghavendra, would you please like to take it over?
It was a very, very, I would say, wrong policy decision of bringing the BCD at this juncture where we are putting an ambitious target. And yes, there are issues with the domestic manufacturers, and the protection is also, legitimately taken up. But then somewhere the government should have balanced, in the short term, how the need in terms of catering to the demand versus how a long-term benefit needs to be given to the manufacturer should have been addressed through a policy decisions. Coming back to the situation here, yes, I see probably there is a large amount of rush to accumulate stocks to avoid BCD, which led to the price increase, and coupled with unprecedented rally of polysilicon raw material, and also the closure of Chinese manufacturing plant somewhere between October to December period due to the cut down in the power due to the environmental issues. Now these were actually the disruptions, I believe. Somehow maybe I am optimistic that once we start April, probably that accumulation game is over, and then now things will be out open, and people will come to terms on more realistic way, probably how then demand supply needs to be managed. As both of them mentioned, if the project's unavailability is so evident, then what will the manufacturer do with the higher prices? They will not be able to cater. So their production also will be impacted. And probably that's where I see some easing out of situation on the pricing may happen post April, May, maybe in the June period. But however, I'm crossing my finger mainly because of the other issue which has kicked in on Russia-Ukraine, which is also disrupting the supply chain across the world. So if things are resolved in a short term, I probably see kind of better easing of prices in the next 3 to 4 months period. That's my view.
Yes, you pointed out very correctly. Even I guess the assembly part is also challenging. And following for that only, we have one question from Mr. Pratik, who wants to know that how much % of the solar cells and panels are expected to be manufactured by automatic assembly to reach the expected capacity. So Mr. Amit, Mr. Barve and Mr. Arokar, would you like to answer this?
So if you see, the solar cell manufacturing facility is fully automated. Yeah. So solar cell lines, which used to be outdated like maybe 10 years back, used to have some manual components. But today, all the cell lines which have been established in India and commercially running, and even all those expansion plans where all the manufacturers are upcoming with the solar cell facilities are fully automated. Now, there is no ambiguity on that, and they will remain fully automated to handle the capacity and the size of the cells which are getting manufactured currently. The question will still remain onto the module, because module has both the components. There have been fully automated lines and there have been semi-automated lines or manual lines. I would say proportionately, if you say approximately half percent right now, like half of them are fully automated and half of them are still semi-automated lines actually. But going forward, as we see with the PLI, the large scale manufacturing capacities will come, and all of these will come with the fully automated lines, which will have a least of the manual intervention, and which will churn out the best of the qualities that we definitely look forward to make the world-class modules in India. Even as I said, the size of the wafers is moving to 182 mm, 210 mm. Those are again getting half cut. So these will be really difficult to handle with even multi-bus bars, like 9 bus bar, 10 bus bar. The manual soldering, the manual assembly, the manual layup is going to be impossible actually. And when you move to these technologies of M10 and M12, there is no alternate option than to go for fully automated model lines also.
Oh, right. There's also one more. Yes, please, Mr. Arokar.
Yes, very rightly said by Barway sir that there is no option to go with the automated plants right now, because with the multi-bus bars and the gaps and the manual intervention and the precision of the solar cells, solar panel manufacturing. Again, what is the question is that the percentage that right now it is 16 point some gigawatt, the manufacturing capacity definitely need to double or make it 2.5 times to achieve the expected target. So it's you can say in the percentage is to 50% to do with the manufacturing of solar panels, and in solar cells, if you want to be independent, then it might be just only the 4.5%, 4 gigawatt is the manufacturing capacity of solar cell, and the required capacity is approximately 57 gigawatt per annum. So it needs to go 10 times. So the manufacturing opportunities are more considering the expected target.
Okay, so you spoke about the target and the manufacturing capacities, right? Mr. Raghavendra, there is one question for you from Mr. Ramesh in the Q&A box. He wants to know that what is the fate of REC certificates in India, as it was endured by the government between 2014 and 2017, and subsequent to that we did not see any push from the government on imposing the renewable power obligation to industries.
I think it is a very, very good question. Yes, it's a time to question, what is the use of such RECs, but and also true that the RPO obligations are not made it as a mandatory. Today it is still at an honorary kind of a situation, whereas the pressure is on DISCOM to oblige the RPO targets, not so much on the power guzzling industries. But the REC certificate, in my opinion, in the future will play a very important role, because sooner or later the RPO obligation is going to be mandatory, and there are discussions at the government circles, and within the backdrop of the commitment made by Honorable Prime Minister on how we should go about improving the RE portion, say 50% of our overall thing. There is no other way, but they will make the RPO mandatory to, in fact, they may cover many more industries from the existing list, and then make it an RPO as a compulsory thing. So to that an extent, then the certificates holds valid, and definitely it will serve a good purpose. And to my, cannot be so much today, but then definitely in the future.
Thank you, Mr. Raghavendra, for addressing that. I hope that Mr. Ramesh is satisfied and with the answer that he was looking for. Another question, there's one more question from Mr. Suresh Reddy. He wants to know the possibility of having a grid controller in Indian context. As we understand, same exists in the other developed countries in the form of grid operator or grid control mechanism, which ensures the grid stability. Mr. Amit Barve, can you please answer this question?
I believe it, rather than me, probably I think so Mr. Mirji would be the correct person to answer for this. I hope yeah.
Oh, sure. Yes, in India, the grid control mechanism on the demand side and forecasting side already exists. Now, there are national level committee or the entity, NLDCC, we call it as, load dispatch center. There is a national load dispatch center, control centers, and which also has a hierarchy at a regional level. Then there is a regional level load dispatch centers, RLDCC, and there is another level which is at a state level, that is at a state load dispatch center. So definitely there is a very structured mechanism at a national level, regional level, and a state level. These utilities entities have a mechanism to comprehensively understand, broadcast, forecast the demand and control the generations. So that's where I actually mentioned the problem with the RE, which is disrupting the grid comes, because in a traditional generating system, they are 24/7, and then any sudden demand at any regional level is well managed through a grid controls, and the respective generating stations are given instructions to do the additional generation. It is not possible for the solar in particular or a wind, unless until again it is coupled with that's what I said, a hybrid model, that you use both solar wind along with the battery, make it a 24/7 system in line with the traditional generating stations. Then the larger grid stability can be achieved. So without that, it is a very big challenge, and that's the reason you see DISCOMs also playing at times the cards of discouraging and telling even the PPA grid developers to stop generating. There are so many issues which are reported that they're actually wasting their generation. They can't really feed to the grid because of the grid stability issue. Coming back, in short, yes, we do have a structure at national, regional, and state level to manage the grid.
You pointed it out very correct that control and broadcast is an essential parameter to be addressed for grid stability. Another question is from Mr. Venkateshwara Rao. Venkatesh, he wants to know how to manage the price validity time. And the EPC companies get only 2 to 3 days from the OEMs, where they need to give 1 month to 3 months to the clients. So how do we address this? Mr. Barve, I believe this question is for you.
Okay. So I think so this is really currently a worst time for any EPC companies or any developers to be in when the price volatility is so high. And to be frank, it's beyond anyone's control, because the volatility is right from the polysilicon to wafer to cell to module. One, on the component. Secondly, on the shipment cost, the duty structures. So many things are changing. Dollar moving frequently up and down. So too many variables for anybody to keep the control. What I would suggest, and what probably even I tell my colleagues also who work from the EPC sales side, is to keep the least of the validity and explain the customer these are the issues which are there. Whether that benchmark of costing actually even still goes up by a few punch points in terms of C&I customers or residential customers, still the financial feasibility for the customer is not going to go out of it actually. So that within that band, you will be still remaining a profitable venture for you to do an investment. But believe us that these are the volatilities. Probably they can also check it on their own, the kind of price movement which is happening. And bear with us, till the time we do not seal an order, there is no possibility that we can guarantee a price. Because till the time we do not book the raw material, till the time we do not seal the exchange rates, it's impossible even for the manufacturers to hold on to the price validity. This is time. This is something which we have seen happening very frequently in this year and maybe last year. Earlier, the prices always have been going down. So it always would have been an advantage when EPC companies or developer used to quote a price, and then the slide used to be always down. So always they would had a chance to reduce it further rather than going back and increasing the price. The trend reversal has happened from last 6 quarters, that the prices have started going up and the volatility is adding to the up and down. And probably this will continue for a few more days before the demand and supply gets established. Today, there is a tremendous amount of shortage of polysilicon as compared to the worldwide demand actually. Till the time it doesn't get settled down and till all other paraphernalia like Ukraine war, the dollar moving up and down because of economic situation, this parity of having a stabilized price regime will not come, maybe at least in the next 2 to 3 quarters minimum. Yeah, and we will have to live with that. There is no other option.
Yes, a lot of things we need to be taken care of when it comes to the sales, manufacturing. Of course, yes. Mr. Raghavendra, my question next is for you, that you spoke about grid parity, right? So I would like to understand that in India, the new renewable energy projects, I believe, has already reached the grid parity, putting them on level with the coal-fired power plants. So what do you think? What steps are being taken to bring the cost in line with the coal-fired power plant for renewable energy?
Okay, your question is the price parity of a coal-fired generation versus the solar?
Yes.
Oh yeah. So I may have a little different view. I don't know whether many people are aware of this. So if we have to see a comparison, the initial cost of installation of a solar is actually much higher compared to the traditional, say, gas-fired substation. The generations. Somewhere I also read a comparison, in terms of US dollars. So it's like for one, 1 kilowatt of power, it's about $2,000 versus $1,000. Kind of that is the issue. But where the game changing happens, the game changing happens in the long term utilization of that particular installation or the generating stations over a period of time. Now, the traditional coal-fired or a gas-fired substation, the generating stations run 24/7. So that makes them, little advantage as far as apportionment of their initial cost over a period of time, because the solar and wind has a constraints in terms of availability of generation because of the nature of the climate and the daytime versus the nighttime, etc., etc. But what led to the tariff slide, I would say, as far as solar, because if you see 10 years back, the solar power cost was huge compared to the thermal or to an extent any power things. So much so, then we also have seen the lowest of 1.99 rupees per unit in Gujarat. I'm sure, I don't know the viability at this point of time for them is a I would say reality. Now, as Mr. Barve touched upon, all these years we only have seen the declining of the investment cost led by the module cost sliding, from huge, like I would say almost 100%, it has more than 100% it came down. Yes, in the last few quarters, it is showing the upward trend. And today the tariffs are bounced back. I don't think the sustainability is exercised. If somebody is quoting at 2 rupees to a matter 2.5 rupees, and in recent auctions, I also have seen things gone up to 2.7, 2.8. Probably it may touch even 3 plus. So from an EPC point of view, it's absolutely about even 3.5, 4. I would say so. So now still the tariff of solar is much better compared to the traditionally generated power through gas or thermal. And wind, as I have not much idea about it, but definitely from thermal point of view and from from gas-fired units, solar even now holds definitely an edge in terms of the tariffs.
Right, you addressed it very precisely, and all small things also were covered into it. Thank you so much for that. I would like to have a closing statement from Mr. Barve. Mr. Barve, can you please take it ahead?
So, I think so. As a closing statement, I would say one thing is that solar is growing, and I'm sure it will keep growing. there are a lot of challenges what we see in the path that we have to go towards 500 gigawatt of renewables and 300 gigawatt of solar. But this has been the hallmark that last 10 years, we have also seen multiple challenges which we were able to overcome. And that's the reason even I'm also pretty confident as well as optimistic that in next 10 years also, the similar way the Indian entrepreneurs will beat the odds which are coming up to them, and they will make it a success story, and will be one of the shining star probably as far as renewable is concerned. There is a tremendous government intent. There is a need for us to have the additional energy and a need for a green power. So cumulatively all put together, I'm very sure that India will be rising star as far as renewables is concerned, and solar will, I would say, play the major role in this transition from the carbonized to the decarbonized society or the green society in coming future.
Mr. Arukar, would you like to add anything to it?
Yes, definitely. The solar will play the major role, and considering the government policies, EPC, as one of the EPC asked, that rates of validity and all these things, everyone has to work hand in hand and grow together for the achievement of the 500 gigawatt target. So that's what, from work hand in hand and grow together.
Definitely, we need to move together in order to achieve the biggest target that our government is planning for us. Mr. Raghavendra Modi, what would you like? What are your comments on that?
So, well, there is no doubt in my mind, solar is the option, and I am strongly, believe that energy security is the most important driver for this. So, yes, the challenges remains, and the challenges has to be addressed. But there is no doubt in our mind that solar is the new energy source for India, and rightly so. We must really accept that. Then we must see how this can be realized in future to come.
Yes, absolutely. Because so grid security and overall security is the future, and we definitely need to address it in different ways. Well, thank you so much, everyone. That it was such a wonderful session, and it was an honor for us to have you as a co-panelist. And I would again like to thank everyone for sharing your valuable thoughts on today's topic of renewable energy, the 500 gigawatt transition and business prospects. We hope you all have enjoyed this session. And before wrapping up today's session, we would like to thank our distinguished panelists, Mr. Aved Barve, Mr. Raghavendra Modi, and Mr. Amit Arukar. I would like to thank our editor, Mr. Prasad Nair, for taking this initiative. To get more updates from EPR Magazine, you can follow our social media pages. Also, our mobile applications are available on Google Play Store and App Store for enhanced reading. With this, we would like to announce the closing of today's session. I request you to stay tuned for more such sessions. Until then, thank you, goodbye, take care, and stay safe, everyone.